This is Gemara and Sukkah Daf Yud Zayin. All the learning for this month, the month of Av, has been generously sponsored by Zecher Nishvah Chesed ben Avram Yehuda, as well as Rechel Bas Shamshin Aaron Zvi. The learning of the entire Chabura should be a tremendous chosil in Nishmasam. Of course, Allah Chayim ben Vega Chayim ben Sar Shalom Simon Reizah Sar Bas Knandeli Tvasim Mas Chayisa Yisrael Mendel Tevert Shalei Shem Mas Naomi V'Shavik Shirchana Shmuel ben Tila Dinim ben Chan Reizah Chayim ben Smina Li Bracha Salam Musa Din Einam B'Hashem Mendel Sviv and Vega Tivera Michael Sipar Nas Lefili Huva Rivka Bas Hashem Nas Elisim Chalester V'Sayir Shar Chali Yisrael, as well as the Choshidach for Yisrael Chayim and the Vayr Shemirim Bas Rivka Rizal Gittel. And again, a tremendous mazel tov Tel Talea Bas Ita Baruch Hashem, another beautiful simcha. We pick it up on the top of Yud Zayin Amid Aleph, more halachas into the creation of the sukkah. What is kosher about the walls was yesterday's discussion. Yesterday's discussion involved many of the intricate halachas Moshe Sinai's and different mechanics which we spoke about in Gemara Erev, in Gemara and Shabbos, mechanics which we learned many times. The mechanic of Lavid, that when you have something less than 3 tvachim, the gap gets closed up. The mechanic of what is this, what is the smallest size of a sukkah wall, the 7 tvachim wall. And now today we're going to take similar concepts and we're going to go to the schach. And we're going to figure out what is the minimum size that you could have an issue with your schach. And these were concepts that we mentioned in the past, concepts that the difference will be between airspace and between basal schach. Let's get to it, says the Mishnah. And one last thing, apologies for the lateness of today's daf, upstate video, internet issues, and Mirz Hashem, we should be back on a regular schedule after Shabbos. If someone distances the schach from the walls, the shleisha tvachim of 3 tvachim, psula is going to be puzzle. Says the Mishnah, case number 2. We have a house with a hole missing, and you put schach on top of it. If there's 4 amois from the wall to the schach, then it's going to be puzzle. Less than 4 amois, it's going to be kosher. So in case number 1, what was the halacha? If you distance the schach from the wall 3 tfachim, it's going to be puzzle. Case number 2 was that you have a house with a hole in it, and you put schach in the middle, it's 4 amois, it's going to be puzzle. So Rashi right away, in the second Rashi, points out that in case number 1, the reason why it's puzzle is because the airspace puzzles with 3 tfachim, afilu min atzad. And then Rashi continues that the next case in the Mishnah, the reason why you have 4 amois is because when you're next to a wall, we have a concept of doif and akuma, we have a concept that the wall bends, a concept that we've seen. So if it's airspace, it's possible with only 3 tfachim. If it's not airspace, but it's puzzle schach, like in this second case that they're sealing puzzle schach, then it'll be puzzle with 4 amois. Case number 3, we have a chatzar which is surrounded by porches, sukkah gedela shekifua, bedavar shein misachim by, or we have a large sukkah which is surrounded by items that you cannot use as schach, and yishtach davar ba'amois psula. Again, 4 amois. So we have 3 cases at the end of the Mishnah, seemingly teaching the same din, which the Gemara will talk about right away. Says the Gemara, and as you see over here in the picture, case number 1 over here is when you have a distance between the schach and the wall of 3 tvachim, and of course you see this is airspace. Airspace is going to be worse than having puzzle schach. In case number 2, what's the issue? The issue is not airspace, because once you fill it up with schach, as you see over here, the issue is puzzle schach, not airspace. Puzzle schach, you can have more of a liberty, you can have 4 amois to the side. Case, and then the Mishnah continued and taught 3 variables of the same case of dalet amois. This was case number 1 with the house with the roof, the hole in the roof, This is case number 2 when you have a chatzar which is surrounded by porches, and you put the schach on top, and again it's puzzle schach on the sides, so you have 4 amois for doif and akuma. And case number 3 is the large sukkah, and you surround it with puzzle schach, again 4 amois. And of course the obvious question which the Gemara begins with, Kol Hani Lamali. The last 3 cases of the Mishnah, all 3 cases are teaching one central theme, one central idea. They're all teaching the same halacha. That puzzle schach from the side, puzzles with 4 amois, the din of doif and akuma. So says the Gemara, why do we need all 3 cases? The Gemara explains, we need all 3 cases. If we only said case number 1, the house that has a hole in the roof, I would have thought, why are the walls there? The walls are there for the house. And maybe that's the reason why the walls will act as a bent wall for Daifin Akuma. In the case of the Chatzar, which is surrounded by porches, the Mechitza is lav lachsadra avidi. The Mechitza is, the walls are not made for the porches. The walls are made for the house. A Malay would have thought it's not the case. Again, in this case number 1, why are the walls of the house there? To service the inside of the house. So to say Daifin Akuma to bent in is very simple. But in case number 2, why are these walls there? The walls aren't there to service the outside area. The walls are there to serve the inside area. So you think maybe you don't say Daifin Akuma, Kamashlan that you do. Both these cases, I would have thought that the reason is that you put on Succah kosher. That you put on not kosher schach, this schach pasol who emaloi. So I would think the fact that you put on not kosher schach, it's not a case that there's a porch on the ceiling or there's a ceiling on the ceiling, and by default it's not kosher schach, and therefore we'll say Daifin Akuma. Maybe if I actually fill it up with not kosher schach, it's going to be worse. Succah, so we need all 3 cases. Amar Rabba Ashkechil Rabbanan Devei Rab. I found the Rabbanan of the Yeshiva Rav, the Yosef Ikamri, they were sitting and saying, Avir Pasol B'Shleisha, Schach Pasol, Pasol Be'arba. Now the Gemara goes back to case number 1 in the Mishnah. So again, we just dealt with case number 2 in the Mishnah, the 3 cases, the case of the house, the case of a porch, the case of a large chutzner. The Gemara explained that there's unique dinim about all 3 cases. That in the case of the house, the walls are there servicing the inside. So maybe that's when we say Daifin Akuma. The case of the porch is servicing the outside. The case of the house and the porch, at least the schach puzzle that is there was the original structure. You didn't go and put schach puzzle there. But in case number 3, that you went to put schach puzzle there, maybe it'd be worse. Says the Gemara, that's why we need all 3 cases. Now Rabba comes along and says he found the Rabbanan of the Yeshiva of Rab that they were sitting, they were saying, restating the din, the first part of the Mishnah. That was the second part of the Mishnah. Now we go back to the first part of the Mishnah. What was the first part of the Mishnah? Avir paisel b'shleisha. If you have airspace, a gap, 3 tvachim. Schach pasel paisel b'arba. But if you have schach pasel not kosher schach, then you have 4 tvachim in order for it to be pasel. And says the Gemara of Amina Lo Anan, Rabba says, and I said, Avir the paisel b'shleisha minal lechu. Where do you know this din? That airspace pasels with 3. Explains the Gemara that's not learned to the Mishnah here. Psula, our Mishnah. The Mishnah said that if the schach is away from the wall for 3 tfachim, it's pasel. Whereas schach pasel nami loy lifsol elabar ba'amos. That therefore says the Gemara. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. One more time. What did the Gemara just explain? The Gemara just explained that the difference is that Avir Pasal is 3 Tfachim, Schach Pasal is Be'arba'ah. Again, this is the issue over here. Be'arba'ah means Tfachim, which is what we explained. The Gemara says, where do we know this from? We know this from our Mishnah. Ask the Gemara, Schach Pasal Nami L'Sal B'Ravamis. If you're going to learn from the Mishnah, so why are you telling me this Schach Pasal gives Pasal by 4 Tfachim? It should Pasal with 4 Amois. Why? The Tanan we learned in our Mishnah by Shnif of Succah Gabov. If your house has a roof and you put Schach on top of it, Yesh Bein HaSikoch L'Koisel Dalit Amois Psula. Says the Gemara, why are you telling me that when you have Schach Pasal, the Paslus is 4 Tfachim, it should Pasal with 4 Amois, like you see in the Mishnah. We saw those 3 cases in the Mishnah that we had Pasal Schach on the ceiling, and a Pasal with 4 Amois. Va'amrulei, and they responded, Bar Minei Dahi, don't ask from the Mishnah, the Rav Ushmo V'Armi Tarayu. They both explain the case of the Mishnah, Mishan Doifen, Akuma, Naguba. That's a different din. The reason why you have until 4 Amos is not because of this Schach Pasal. It's because we view it as the wall bends because it's on the side of the Sukkah. Whereas if it would be in the middle of the Sukkah, then it is true, says the Gemara, not kosher Schach would indeed be Pasal with 4 Tfachim. V'aminalu ana, and I responded, Ma ilu ika Schach Pasal. Pachais me'arba. You have Schach Pasal less than 4 Tfachim. What's the halacha? No problem. She just says Schach Pasal pasels with 4 Tfachim. And then next to it, what do you have? Avir Pachs Mishleisha. Next to the 4, less than 4 Tfachim, 3.9 Tfachim is Schach Pasal. You have Avir less than 3, 2.9 Tfachim, not Psachim, 2.9 Tfachim of air. Says the Gemara, an inventive idea. What's the din? Kshira. Obviously, it's going to be kosher because schach basel is not 4 tvachim. The avir is not 3 tvachim. Excuse me. So therefore, the sum total is going to be it's kosher. But it asks the Gemara what happens if malye b'shvudim. Let's say you fill in the airspace of the airspace. Excuse me, that was a moment ago airspace, which was possible with 3 tvachim. Meaning airspace is more potent. It passes with less. Let's say you went and you filled it up with not kosher schach. What should halacha be? My psula. It should be possible now. Why? Because not kosher schach is better than airspace. So if the airspace was possible, certainly the not kosher schach should be possible. But ask the Gemara why? It should be like schach basel, and therefore you should have an extra tefach. What's the case over here? That you're filling it up, says the Gemara, you should have until 4 tvachim. Answers the Gemara, v'amru li, and they said to me, hachi, if what you're saying is correct, l'didach, according to you, nami da'amr schach basel b'isel b'arba amos. Again, that was the fight. What is schach basel? Is it 4 amos, 4 tvachim? So you just asked, in my opinion, that said 4 tfachim, and you said if the two are next door to each other, it shouldn't be an issue. I'll say back to you, I'll throw the ball back to you. What did you say is possible for schach basel? 4 amos. Ilu ikam. Ma iluika, excuse me, schach basel bachs mi dalet hamois. If there's schach basel, it passes less than 4 hamois. V'avir bachs mi shleisha, my ksheira. Again, if the two are side by side, it's going to be kosher. The exact same case. Just this time it's 4 hamois, not 4 tfachim. Instead of 3.9 tfachim, it's 3.9 hamois. But he has mali b'shvudim my psula. Lo yavir abaisel b'shleisha kizach basel abaisel b'arba hamois. V'amina lo, and now Rava responds, I know. Hi, my, what's going on over here? According to the way that I explained, that's 4 tfachim, there's no question. Why? Because I say that when the Mishnah said 4 amos of schach pasol turning over to your dynamite base, what's the reason that I hold a 4 amos toifen akuma? Mishum shiura v'lav shiuru. The reason is because I hold it's like zeros hakasov of 4 amos or less. High lav, excuse me, Mishav Ashira v'lav shiru, high lav shiru, it's not the shir, so it's fine. Because the 2 shiurim 4 amos, 3 tfachim are not the same, so the 2 will not combine together. According to you, why do you hold 4 tfachim and 3 tfachim, 4 tfachim v'slach basel, 3 tfachim v'ravir? The reason is aflaga. It's just a separation. It's not a svara. It doesn't have logic to it. So mali is like b'schach basel, mali is like b'schach basel v'avir. So I'm going to throw the ball back at you and say, wait. But if the whole reason it's possible is just because of the separation, so the separation of schach basel and avir should also be a separation. Amar lei. So says the Gemara, Amar lei Abaye. Abaye responds, Ulamar. Excuse me 1 second. Amar lei Abaye. Ulamar nami nehedol shavi shirayu v'sukkah gedayla. Abaye says back, Rabba, hold on 1 second. You just told me why do they not combine? Because 4 amos, 3 tfachim are not the same. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Very good by a sukkah kedayla. What about sukkah ketana? What if I have a small 7 tevach sukkah, but sukkah ketana mi loy shavi shurayu? Are they not the same? Of course they're the same by a sukkah ketana. Because by a sukkah ketana, once you have 3 tfachim, it's going to mess it up. And therefore both of them should be, whether it's chach basel, whether it's avir, it's going to be the exact same thing. Amar lei, Abaye says back to Rabbah, what's the reason why a schach katana, a 7, excuse me, one more time. What's the reason why a sukkah kitana of the din that you just said? Not because the shiurim are the same, so it's combining. That's not the reason. It's a technical problem. The lesser the shiura the sukkah, because it's not a shir sukkah. It blows up. It's not 7 tfachim. Excuse me, that's going to be the next question, and that is Rabbah's response. Let's take a moment to take a drink and see some beautiful pictures. Said the Gemara, and really all these pictures are a bit self-explanatory, more just for, if you visualize it, sometimes it makes it easier. Avir, Paisel, B'Shleish, you see over here the airspace possible with 3 tfachim, where Aviv Schach, Basel, possible with 4 tfachim, that was the first opinion, and this is the Gemara's kasha. Says the Gemara that if you have schach pasel less than 4 tfachim, it's kosher. If you have airspace less than 3 tfachim, it's kosher. So why don't we say if you fill up the airspace that it should be an issue? Says the Gemara, schach pasel be'emsa is pasel ba'arba, minatzad is arba amois. Again, Arba'ah is 4 tfachim, that's if it's in the middle of the sukkah. But if it's on the side, you have more area because of doifin, kuma. And that is at the end of where we're up to. Let's continue. Ask the Gemara, 1 second. Are you telling me that any time? 1 second, we're having a bit of an issue. 1 second. Are you going to tell me that any time the shiurim are not equal, loy mitzdarfi? What was that answer that you just gave me? You just wanted to differentiate between are the shiurim equal or not. If the shiurim are equal, then we can combine. If the shiurim are not equal, then they're not going to combine. You then went along and said that it's going to be different. Is that true? But now we learned in the Mishnah. We have a garment that's 3 by 3 tfachim, or hasak al baraba, or we have a sackcloth which is 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, or we have leather chamisha 5 tfachim by 5 tfachim, or mapas we have a reed mat. Sheesh 6 vachim. V'tani Allah, in that Mishnah we learned, ha-beged, asak, va'or, va'mapotz. A combination of 2 different types of material, mitzdarfin zemzeh, they do combine. Of course, it's regard to halachas of tumah for the minimum measurement. But says the Gemara, even different measurements are going to combine. We just had 4 different measurements. Sak was 4, ar was 5, mapotz was 6. And yet, says the Gemara, they're going to combine. You just told me you just told me an idea that the 2 do not combine when they're different measurements. Answers the Gemara, says Rabba, Hasam Kidiktani Taima. Over there it says the reason it's a different reason. It's a tomadin that since it has the appropriate size to be metami for sitting on it, it's going to combine for other things. Kidditanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, hamikatze mikula and tevach al tevach. If you cut out of any of these materials, the reed, the mat, the leather, 1 by 1 tefach, tamei it's tamei. Mikula and tevach al tevach. It's going to be Tommy. Asks the Gemara, tefach l'may chazi. But what usage is 1 tefach by 1 tefach? V'amar Rav Shemen lagim Shem Rav Yanai hoil v'royu lila gabe chamar. You can put on top of your animal and your donkey for a saddle, and therefore we see, like we just said, with regard to the 2 materials combining. Says the Gemara, in Surah, they had the exact same discussion we just had, a slightly different names and faces. Besura Amrulei, about 20 lines to the bottom, first one line is Amri. In Surah they said Amrulei Shmaitza by Lishna as follows. But in Hardah, like we just said, but in Hardah, what do they say? Mas, they said it a little bit different. Amr Yudam Shmuel, Schach Pasel be'emsa, Paisel ba'arba. Minatzad, Paisel ba'arba, Amois. Meaning, in the Hardah, they differentiated just like we want to differentiate in the Mishnah. That it's not a din in Schach Pasel, it's a din in where is the Schach Pasel. If the Schach Pasel is in the middle of the Sukkah, then I'll agree with you, it's 4 tfachim. If the Schach Pasel is on the side, that's when it morphs into this new halacha of 4 Amois. Tana, says the Gemara of Rav Omar. But what does Rav respond to this din of Shmuel? It's always arba amos. Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. So Tanan asks the Gemara on Shmuel. You put a plank of wood on top of your sukkah, which is 4 tfachim. The sukkah is kosher. Bish l'malei Rav. Damar. Bein minatzad arba amos. Shavachik sheira. Givaldik. It makes a lot of sense. Rav said, what's the paslas? 4 amos, whether in the middle of this high side, makes a lot of sense. Over here it's 4 tfachim, it's kosher. Elo li Shmuel da'amar be'emsa barba. Shmuel said, when do 4 amos apply? 4 amos only apply minatzad, doifin akuma. But in the middle of the sukkah, I agree, says Shmuel, it's 4 tfachim. Amay sheira. You have a plank of wood, which is 4 tfachim wide. Answers the Gemara. The case of that brisa was minatzad. Obviously a bit difficult. We never like to give such an akimta, inventing that the brisa has to be talking about that case. But says the Gemara that we have no choice. Tashema, one more proof. Shnei sadinim mitzarfin, 2 sheets combined. Shnei nisarim mitzarfin, boards do not combine. Ramei Raim and nisarim kisadinim do the same thing. According to the Lashon, the Amar Rav. According to the Lashon that Rav said, that what is Arba Amois, that even in the middle is 4 Amos, or on the side is 4 Amos. Beautiful. Now the table's turned. Now I understand that it's Misar for Tal and Amos. The other Lashon, we're not asking Shmuel now we're asking the other Lashon according to Rav. Then in the middle it's 4 Tvachim. What's the case? This Budalid, lovely Tsarufe. If there's 4 Tvachim, it's possible. Why does it need to combine? This should sound familiar. If it's not 4 Tvachim, it's just piece of poles. It's regular schach. It's bamboo pieces, so it should be kosher. Answers the Gemara, La Ilam Disbu Arba. Answers the Gemara, you're right. Really, it's 4. When it said the case of mitzaref and a man, it's on the side. Another ukimta. In order to answer it up, we're going to leave the last Hashemah, the last Kasha and Taris for tomorrow. We'll pick up from here, Mirta Shem.